apart from Colm, a reminder that we've also got Ciaran Barr with us in studio tonight as well. That's because he has been watching this afternoon's Leinster Hurling Final at Croke Park. And that's the match that we're turning our thoughts to next. Wexford trying once again to land that provincial title that has eluded them for the past 17 years. They up against an Offaly team that has, in truth, replaced them in the status of Leinster Hurling since the late 70s. A big game then for both counties, and commentary is brought to us now by Marty Morrissey.
David Hughes from Banagher gets the biggest chance of his playing career today when he fills the position left vacant by the injured Jim Troy. Otherwise, the team is the same that finished against Kilkenny. Dahi Regan retains the midfield spot following his display that day, while Michael Lyster showed enough to be given the number 15 jersey from the start. Little did Billy Byrne think when he retired at the beginning of the year that he would be back in a Leinster final today. He joins captain Larry Murphy in a full forward line that also features top scorer from the semi-final, Eamon Scallon. The team is exactly the same as that which defeated Laois, so there is no room for either Tom Dempsey or George O'Connor. Leinster final referee is Aidan McSivna from Dublin, refereeing his first Leinster final. Offaly won the toss and decided to play with wind advantage in this first half, and they're playing from left to right. And already, for taking too many steps, John O'Connor is deemed the guilty party. Free for Offaly. Here's Johnny Dooley. First attempt, and it sails beautifully over the bar. After 39 seconds of play, Offaly crossed the Wexford crossbar for the very first time. Great puck out. Comes down towards Martin Storey. It sends in a ball which is just going inches wide. And Martin Storey is a vital cog in this Wexford machine. Break calls nicely for Johnny Pilkington. Going straight through. Still Johnny. Looking around to see if he's been closely marked. The answer is yes, and he takes his point. Johnny Pilkington adds to Johnny Dooley's point, and we still have only 1 minute and 45 seconds gone in the Leinster final. A wonderful run by young Pilkington as he just tore through the defence. Chasing after him was Thomas Dunn. Looked around to see if he was being marked, and then lovely ball over the bar. Oh, brilliantly caught by Larry O'Gorman ahead of Joe Dooley, and he gets the free. Wonderful play though by Larry O'Gorman. Liam Dunn with this free. And Dahi Regan, what a catch. Showing that there are still footballers in Offaly, but it comes straight to Liam Dunn. Intercepted brilliantly by John Troy. He looks so much like older brother Jim. Now lashing one in. Oh, off the post, comes back out. Jerk Cush pulling it up first time. Down towards Liam Dunn. And away it goes, back up towards Billy Byrne and Kevin Keenahan. Dropping ball, putting it across to Eamon Scallon. Who has it? Offaly have it. Dahi Regan, pulled on by Adrian Finlan. Down towards Martin Storey. Brian Whelan knew that he was going to try and chink inside him. Whelan held him. And there's a free for Martin Storey. Eamon Scallon with the free. And he puts it over the bar. After 6 minutes of play, Wexford registered their first score in the Leinster final. And once more Dahi Regan to John Troy. Nipping in was Adrian Finlan. This is John O'Connor that's come back to clear it. That's a good intelligent ball. Down to Finlan, pulled up. Back out towards Dahi Regan. He saw Tommy Keogh coming behind him. Back to Brian Whelan, and Tommy Keogh does magnificent. Brian Whelan once more. Lobbing one in. Michael Lyster going up for it. Larry O'Gorman nipping in to intercept. Blocked by Joe Dooley. Back towards Jerk Cush and lashed up the field towards Paul Finn. Johnny Pilkington gone back to gather it. Sending it back up towards the full forward line. John Troy has it. John lobbing one high and lobbing one over the crossbar. it, 3 Offaly points scored by 3 different Offaly players. It was Johnny Pilkington that sent it in to John Troy. Larry O'Gorman a bit unfortunate, but deadly accurate, young John Troy. Good puck up by Damien Fitzhenry. Hubert Rigney is there. Sending it over towards Garrett Kavanagh. Menace Gorthy. Thomas Dunn. Johnny Dooley. John Troy. Nice ground hurling. Oh, lovely pick up by John Troy. Beautiful skill. Cutting inside to Billy Dooley. To Brendan Kelly. Going for goal and saved by Damien Fitzhenry. Fitzhenry clears it. What a wonderful piece of skill by John Troy. Brendan Kelly coming in, taking a shot. And again Daithí Regan hooks up that big left hand and grabs the sliotar. But he loses out on landing, and it's a ball in for Eamon Scallon. Half blocked down by Shane McGuckian. This is Billy Barr. Decides to send one right across the face of the goal. And running onto it is Johnny Pilkington. Sending it in towards John Troy. Pulled on first time. Lovely ground hurling. Brendan Kelly coming out to meet it. Ger Cush is there, leaving Brendan Kelly in his wake. Sending it down towards Martin Storey. Battling with Brian Wheelahan and Hubert Rigney. Going across is Kevin Martin to try and challenge Martin Storey. Sending in a ball which is going very much to the right and wide. David Hughes again trying Daithí Regan. And obviously I think David Hughes can even see the fact that Regan is doing very well at midfield. To Joe Dooley. Michael Dykeman has gone inside. Willing to take on the marker and willing to take his point. His first of the Leinster Final. And Offaly's 5th. This time it was Joe Dooley that set it up. Michael Dykeman had a bit of space, got inside Larry Murphy and took his point very well. John Troy cleverly putting it across towards Johnny Dooley. Adrian Finlan is there, but Dooley gets the hurley in. Daithí Regan. Johnny Dooley back to Regan. Then sending a ball straight between the posts. Daithí Regan is a man inspired. He cannot do no wrong. That's the scoreline after 16 and a half minutes. Again aimed at Martin Storey, the puck out, and he gathers it. Intercepted beautifully by Brian Wheelahan. Brendan Kelly, ahead of Ger Cush. John O'Connor, Johnny Dooley. John O'Connor hooked by Brendan Kelly. Brendan Kelly again. Larry O'Gorman comes in to send a sliotar down towards his half-forward line. Martin Storey to Larry Murphy, and Larry goes forward, being chased by Brian Wheelahan, and he thought Billy Byrne was available, but Kevin Keenahan is there. To Hubert Rigney. Offaly playing a little bit too close perhaps. Down towards John Troy. Knocked away from him. Comes back to Garrett Kavanagh. Trying to swing away from John Troy. A ball into space for Paul Finn to chase. Kevin Martin is right beside him. This is Paul Finn, highly rated, down Slaney side to his captain Larry Murphy from Coolbawn, and he sends it over the bar. Lovely play by Larry Murphy and Paul Finn. Started initially by Garrett Kavanagh. And 3 points between the teams. Adrian Finlan getting a hurley to it. This is Eamon Scallon, Shane McGuckian, Billy Byrne. Scallon has gone inside. Decides to send it over towards Larry Murphy, who's first to the ball and causing Martin Hannamy a few problems. Back to Martin Storey. And Storey puts it over the bar. The first point for Wexford number 11 after 21 minutes of play. And Wexford beginning to settle now as Tomas Dunn goes forward. Referee gives the Slaney Siders the free. So Liam Dunn. Remember that Wexford playing against the breeze. Dropping that one in. Brilliant point by Liam Dunn. He scored 2 points, both of them 65s against Dublin, and he's got his first this afternoon from outside the 65. The sides level in this Leinster final. Grabbed superbly by Johnny Dooley. Still Dooley. Needs a little bit of help and support. Yeah, oh, wonderful skill by John Troy. Lashing it in. Oh, what a goal! That is a classic goal. Made and created by one John Troy and finished brilliantly by Billy Dooley. What a magnificent goal. But this was made by sheer creative genius. A man called John Troy from Lusman. Now just watch this for vision. We talk about it, now you see it. Into Billy Dooley, and Damien Fitzhenry hardly saw it. Brian Wheelahan, magnificent again. Sending it back down towards John O'Connor. Straight to Daithí Regan, who aims at Brendan Kelly. Joe Dooley, Dermot MacDonald, somehow managing to get it out far as Michael Dygan. Brendan Kelly is inside, but Liam Dunn is in there. So too is Dermot MacDonald. And they come away with it. Again, it's Daithí Regan. Comes down towards Tommy Keogh. Sending it in towards Martin Storey. Hubert Rigney, though, is there, but it falls all the way back for Kevin Keenahan. Johnny Pilkington. With Tomas Dunn outside chasing after it. To Brendan Kelly. Trying to get him inside Ger Cush. John Troy is calling for it. This is John. Just took his eye off it. Adrian Fenlon. Paul Finn. Johnny Pilkington to Daithí Regan. Nice bit of hurling, and the ball runs kindly for Billy Dooley. Garrett Kavanagh staying with him. Still Billy Dooley. Johnny Dooley is calling outside. This is Johnny. A little bit of space. Jinks away from John O'Connor. That's a lovely point by Johnny Dooley. His first from play, but again a real beauty. Again it's Johnny Pilkington. Martin Storey coming in to dispossess him. Nice skill by Storey, being held by Johnny Pilkington. That's a free for Wexford. Eamon Scallon going for his third point, and he gets it. So now just 6 points between the sides. Johnny Pilkington. Johnny Pilkington trying to get inside Larry O'Gorman. Sending it into the middle. Gary Kavanagh coming across. Knocked down towards John Pilkington. Joe Dooley. Sending one in towards Brendan Kelly, and Ger Cush just getting there ahead of him, but then losing the battle to Billy Dooley. Liam Dunn is outside there as well. And the referee, in fact, blows the half-time whistle. And a goal by Billy Dooley, created wonderfully by John Troy, gives Offaly the advantage, having played with the wind in that first half, on a half-time score of Offaly 1 goal, 11 points, Wexford 8 points. So the second half begins, and Wexford hoping now to try and get their act together for this second half. Brendan Kelly and Ger Cush. Falls down for Johnny Dooley to Michael Dygan. And taking too many steps, falling the ball. It's a free for Wexford. Liam Dunn sending it in, added 2. And just gone wide. Come on, Wexford! Remember, for this second half, the Wexford are playing with wind advantage. So they should be At least they should be their intention to send in a lot of ball in towards Billy Byrne for the second half. It's his opposite number, Brett.
The Sunday Tribune, a newspaper you can...
The Department of Education has admitted that its system for correcting leaving certificate examinations failed last year in the case of 49 students whose exams were not fully marked. But this evening, the Association of Secondary Teachers has warned that students should not be panicked into thinking that the system is not working.
All day, the department has been trying to minimise any damage done by these revelations. The students affected had taken art and craft for last year's Leaving Cert, but the craft section, which accounts for 1/4 of the marks, somehow didn't reach the examiners and none of them received any marks for it. A number of the students involved were from the Ursuline College in Sligo. On receiving their initial results, they ordered rechecks. When these did not significantly alter the marks, they complained again.
Very much in control. Wexford badly need to settle and settle very quickly, and they need scores more than anything else. Knocking it back for Tom Dempsey. Martin Story is available. Tom goes it alone and gets his point. Tom Dempsey, the sub, gets his point. Great play by Offaly. Johnny Pilkington once more. Sending it in towards Brendan Kelly. A good intelligent ball. Didn't quite control it. Lovely skill by Kelly. That surely is a foul by Diarmuid MacDonald. And Brendan Kelly felt it as well. But he gets his free. Brendan Kelly and Larry O'Gorman just exchanging, and Brendan Kelly being rather silly and foolish. So Johnny Dooley to take this free. And he puts it over the bar. That's 8 points for Johnny Dooley. Offaly now very much in control as Wexford introduce George O'Connor. Now can George O'Connor inspire Wexford? Because Offaly are going further in front all the time. Ger Cush and Brendan Kelly. Blocked down by Joe Dooley. Picked up, however, by Liam Dunn. An easy ball for Shane McGuckin, but he doesn't control it. It comes to Billy Byrne, and Billy Byrne takes his points. So Wexford stay in touch, but they are very much struggling for scores. So now George O'Connor takes on Dahi Regan. And Dahi does it George O'Connor by grabbing the slither first time. But he drives it out over the end line. Good puck out by Damien Fitzhenry. Martin Story, who by his standards has had a quiet afternoon. Mainly because Offaly have dominated around midfield. Wexford rather have, Offaly have dominated around midfield. Wexford having major problems there. That's going to be a throw ball. Well pulled down by George O'Connor. Billy Byrne has it. Oh, and he just loses control of it. Shane McCuckin getting it out. Only comes first, Paul Finn. Wexford trying to engineer a goal, but they're going the direct route. Eamon Scallon control. Larry Murphy uses the boot instead of the hurley, mainly because he didn't have a hurley. The hurley is broken. It comes back to Liam Dunn as Wexford try to get their act together. Still Liam Dunn, fouled and a free for the Slaney Siders, and Liam is telling his players to come on. forwards for Wexford that have to do something. Eamon Scallon takes his point. Wexford get a little bit closer. 6 points between the teams. George O'Connor can't hold on to it. And again, it's Larry O'Gorman. Sends it down to Billy Byrne. And Kevin Keenahan, I don't know how he got that, but he had it. He loses out, however, as Wexford come in pursuit of scores. Goals preferably, but a point will do fine. Paul Finn and over the bar. Wexford intelligently going for the points. And now there's only 5 points between the sides. Eamon Cregan talking to Podge Mulher and his fellow selector. Will they change? Pat Medlockley, Andy Gallagher, Mick Spain, they're all discussing. George O'Connor comes back to once more Liam Dunn. They're trying to engineer a goal up towards Billy Byrne, but Kevin Keenahan is rock solid at fullback. Excellent play, considering it's only his second full championship match for Offaly. Billy Dooley for Brendan Kelly. Outside is Johnny Dooley. There's a point here, and Johnny Dooley puts it over the bar. 9 points for Johnny Dooley. And it always looked as if Offaly could get that edge in terms of scoring. And it is Rory McCarthy that's in for Wexford. And Wexford try and get a goal. They need a goal. Can Paul Finn do it? Kevin Martin. Paul, oh dear! It looked as if it was going into the net. But David Hughes, to his credit, was always in control. This is Paul Finn getting away from Kevin Martin. Martin did well here just to keep at him, and that ball went right across the face of the goal. George O'Connor, Dahi Regan. George sending it over towards Eamon Scallon. Shane McGuckin, Brian Whelan in there to help as well. Offaly backs under a little bit of pressure now. Comes back outside to Eamon Scallon. And that's going to go straight over David Hughes' crossbar. 5 points for Eamon Scallon. They're still there or thereabouts. Larry O'Gorman, Brendan Kelly. Michael Dignan. Billy Dooley is inside. Oh, brilliant block down again by Liam Dunn. Still Michael Dignan. Giving it across to Declan Pilkington, and Declan puts it over the bar. Great point by Declan Pilkington. A bit unlucky actually to lose his place for the final, but he proves a point now. Christy Keogh just wondering what can they do to pull this one out of the fire. George O'Connor, Brian Whelan with Larry Murphy, Dahi Regan, Brendan Kelly pulling in it first time. Tomas Dunn all alone. Sending it back up towards Hubert Rigney. Goes a little bit further. Rory McCarthy adding to it. Martin Storey trying to get the better of Kevin Keenan. And Storey has it. Now he needs assistance. Tom Dempsey driving it in low. And David Hughes is there. David Hughes is there once more. Well done, David Hughes. It's very difficult for a goalkeeper when he hasn't had anything to do. And when you are called upon, you've got to be able to respond. And Hughes did it. Michael Dignan into the corner towards Brendan Kelly. We all fall down and John Troy picks it up. Troy looking at the posts and swinging it beautifully over the crossbar. That's his second point of the afternoon. And Offaly, are they on their way to the All-Ireland semi-final? 117 to 13 points. Tom Dempsey. They still have time, not much mind you, just less than 5 minutes. Again they try and find Martin Storey, back to Storey, and Hughes, magnificent save. Roy McCarthy back to David Hughes, and again he bats it out. Two wonderful saves by David Hughes. Hubert Rigney comes away with it. They're inspired now, say Offaly. That's a free for the faithful county. And surely Wexford are going back to the southeast once again disappointed. No wonder he takes a drink. And Eamon Cregan giving him the pat on the back. David Hughes has responded to the challenge that Wexford put up. Great save from Tom Dempsey. Brian Wheelahan sending it in towards Michael Dignan. John Troy trying to scoop it up, sending it into the centre where George O'Connor is there. Lashing it back up towards Larry Murphy. Pulled on by Hubert Rigney. Eamon Scallon working hard to try and just gather possession. Sending it in low in towards Martin Storey. Pulled on magnificently again by Brian Whelan. Back to Tom Dempsey. Again they launch one of these missiles in around the house. Martin Storey again underneath it, trying to get it up, trying to get room to swing. Now he swings and he puts it over the bar. It's not enough for Wexford. Good puck out once more by David Hughes. Ryan Wheelahan at the second attempt. Giving it straight, however, to Adrian Fenlon, who sends it back up towards Billy Burr. Well, it was Martin Storey, in fact. Martin Storey now. Can he score a goal here? And again, David Hughes is there. And the goalkeeper now has got his confidence. Larry Murphy sending it over towards Tommy Keogh. Ryan Wheelahan with him. Sending it in right across. And David Hughes says, leave it to me. That's exactly what Martin Hanemy did. Michael Dignan. Larry Murphy. Scooping it, but there's nobody there except Brian Wheelahan. Shane McGuckian, rather. He gives it to Michael Dignan. Liam Dunn. Kevin Martin. Kevin is in the thick of things there. Hubert Rigney. Johnny Pilkington. Back to Hubert Rigney. And they workmanlike get that ball out. And then Johnny lashes it up towards Brendan Kelly, and that's gone out over the line. Here comes Paul Finn. Now can they get a goal? Wexford's handling leaves a lot to be desired. Rory McCarthy knocked away from him and out over the end line and wide. And has Eamon Cregan and his fellow selectors worked the oracle for Offaly, because Offaly will celebrate this in style as they surely now go forward to an All-Ireland semi-final against Galway or Roscommon. Billy Dooley, the goal scorer, sending that one in and sending it over the bar. As if to finish off the job, Billy Dooley gets his first point, and a total of 1-1 for one Billy Dooley. A very impressive scoreline, at least from the Offaly point of view, and it's all over. Billy Dooley's goal, set up by one John Troy, gave Offaly this Leinster title, and they did so with passion, with style, with skill. The full-time score, the Leinster final, Offaly 1 goal, 18 points, Wexford 14 points.
While Offaly started the 90s promising to be one of the top sides in hurling over the decade, well, they may have gone to sleep for a year or two, but certainly back with a bang in 1994. And Martin Hanemy from St. Rynagh's accepting the Leinster trophy.
I thought it would never end. 50 minutes into the second half, we began to lose it, and we tried switching players around to try and get the momentum going again. But tremendous display by our backs and by our goalkeeper, and individual displays by our forwards kept us in the game and won it for us in the end.
It was very good, like everything, every 15 men like played its own part, like, and everyone gave it 100%,
Certainly, you played your part inside there at full back today.
I did. Look at the break of the ball, like, came to me, like, so they looked so valid, like.
How many Wexford men did they actually try on you?
I think it was 3, I think.
The backs as a whole played well. You know, centre field played well in the first half, faded in the second half. Individually in the forwards, we didn't function as a forward line as such. So therefore, I'm not pleased with the forwards.
Disasters at the moment. I don't really know how I'm feeling. I mean, it's hard to take it, really, Marty. 3 Leinster finals in a row. But then we can't have no excuses really, because on the day Offaly were a better team. We never really struck form. What we did the last 2 games, like against Dublin and Laois, the semi-final, we just didn't play up to scratch.
Conditions were very warm out there. We got off to a fairly good start, and we lost our footing a bit in the first half, but we came back strong near the finish when it mattered. It's a very tough game, I thought.
I suppose we didn't play as the way we wanted to play, really. I mean, we seemed to bunch a lot, I thought now, which suited Offaly. And which, I mean, the last day, like, our forwards made a lot of room. We played low balls into them, and I think probably today we reverted back to our old game, and it didn't work for us, really.
It's sad, like, the way that we went down again today. It's getting a bit of a habit. I feel sorry for the players. They've put in tremendous effort over the last 2 years, the same bunch of players practically for the last 2 years. And the supporters are like that have come after us, like, followed us through thick and thin, like, and no joy for them today again. It's also hard to take down here in Wexford.
They were keeping us under pressure, like, the whole time, like, so.
What did it mean to you, Kevin?
I just great honour to play for Offaly, like, no.
Well, between Limerick winning the Junior Camogie last night, the Munster final last night, and Offaly today, it's been some weekend. I can go back to Dungarvan tomorrow.
What about Christy Keogh? Will you give it another go?
Oh God, I don't know, Marty. It's all these finals and getting nowhere tells its toll on you, and at the moment we're all very, very dejected and hurt and sore and anything you want to put to it, and I don't know, you have to just think about it for a couple of weeks, but think about it.
Well, Christy Keogh and obviously his fellow selectors and the team naturally very bitterly disappointed after that Leinster final today. He'll think about it, as he said, over the next week or two, but perhaps Christy will feel that he's reached the end of an era with this Wexford team. Who knows? Anyway, let's take a look at the statistics from that match. Now, Wexford were certainly the guiltier when it came to wayward shooting. Not just 7 more wides than Offaly, but almost every one of them a critical miss. Well, this was a fairly free-flowing game. 21 frees, Offaly giving away 13, Wexford 8. Well, let's talk to Ciaran Barr about what he saw in this Leinster final today. And Ciaran, I presume you saw a very good performance from Offaly overall.
I did. I wouldn't agree with Eamon Cregan's analysis of it, because I think their forwards did play well together in certain times, and I think the 3 Dooleys, being brothers in there, have a good understanding, and so does John Troy with them. Their midfield is good. Pilkington is a superb player, and in the first half both him and Dahi Regan played very well. But overall it was a good first half. I think the second half died a bit. They scored 7-6 each team, and you know, 7 points to 6 points in the second half didn't really mean an awful lot in terms of contesting the game. So I was a bit disappointed with the second half, but the first half was good, tight hurling, competitive hurling, and as Liam Dunn said, Wexford really didn't play the way they had played in previous games in the championship. So it was a bit disappointing, I think, from their point of view.
What's your reasoning, Ciaran, for that? Because definitely Wexford were not fired up today the way that they had been, say, 12 months ago, when, although they lost to Kilkenny, like, they played with real fire and dander that day.
I'm not really sure. I think, you know, people say that possibly that when Wexford don't play with that fire, they suffer. They don't have something to fall back on. They don't have players who are just guys like DJ Carey, these type of fellas who bring something out of nothing and raise the whole team, and the team just gets carried along. But they do depend on being very competitive and being very psyched up. And they just didn't seem to be that way. I don't know why, you know, and it's happened in a number of finals, and they're very dejected, and it would be easy for me to turn around and say, well, it's X and Y and Z, but I don't know what the problem is, to be honest with you. I can't analyse the problem because I don't know what's going on in their heads and what way they approach the game. But obviously, there is question marks there, and everybody knows that, and it's old ground. But I would have liked to have seen them, as Liam Dunn said, play the ball wide, spread the game out, and run at people. I don't think I saw really Martin Storey getting inside the 21-yard line, running at people, or Larry Murphy going straight at goal for a goal. Scanlon the last time against Leach was inside and running at people, and you didn't see that today at all.
OK, let's look at the game itself then. In the first half, Offaly got off to the better start perhaps, but Wexford was certainly well in there at that stage and had the makings of a cracking game over the first 15-20 minutes.
Both teams, as we'll see here in the clip of film, that both teams were trading points. This is a good point. Dahi Regan wins the ball well in midfield. It was very tight, and people were getting a lot of blocks and shots in, and the ball comes in, and good intelligent play by Offaly. They were finding each other at this stage. Hand pass from Joe Dooley into Dignan and over the bar. It was a good score, and Wexford were doing exactly the same thing as well. We see here from Wexford, a ball goes down into Billy Byrne and plays the ball across into the full forward line, and Murphy does very well, brings it down with a stick, looks for Storey outside him and bangs it over the bar. Now, teams were trading points there. At that stage it was 6-5 for Offaly, and the thing looked like it was going to gather momentum, and actually, in actual fact, Wexford were the team that were pushing at that stage. And I thought that if Wexford could have got a goal at that stage, they were going to go and get the momentum going, and Offaly would really be pushed, and it would turn out to be a cracker of a game. But unfortunately for Wexford, I don't think they ever capitalised on that momentum, or they weren't let capitalise. I think Offaly were the team that just said to themselves, right, let's shut them out, and that's exactly what they did.
There was only one goal in the game. That one actually fell to Offaly and not to Wexford, who probably needed it most. It was a lovely piece of skill, Ciaran, this.
I think psychologically it was a huge boost to Offaly. After that, they just seemed to take off. Dooley does very well. Johnny Dooley does very well, and that's a beautiful flick inside, and Billy Dooley banging it back in it. Now, he only had one thing in his head when he received that ball, and that was a goal. Now, John Troy does exceptionally well here. He sees the guy inside him and flicks it inside to him and takes his time, and he could have been hooked, but he said to himself, look, I might have only one chance in the match to score a goal, and I'm going to make sure I score it, and he put it in the back of the net. It made a huge difference to the game. You could almost feel the Offaly guys having a surge, and they just went away and scored a number of points, whereas Wexford just seemed to be turning on each other and going, well, what do we do here? Who's going to make the difference? Who out of our team is going to grab the ball and do something like that? And none of them were able to do it.
You mentioned that in the second half the standard of play was disappointing. Perhaps it was because Offaly were so much in charge at that stage, and as the half went on you could sort of feel the life sort of dripping out of Wexford.
You could, but that was because Wexford were winning good possession. They were winning good possession in the middle of the park for about 10 or 15 minutes after the second half started, but they had chances, and if you don't score these chances, momentum is lost, and the other team gets, like the goalkeeper Hughes here did very well twice, and you could feel in the Offaly guys saying, right, we got off the hook, let's get down, and he actually scored a point from that save. And here again, a chance. This was a very, very good chance, actually. That should have been a goal.
The resurrection had taken place. Yet.
Cleanly. And there you go, cleared again. And you could feel from that now, and even a lot of play before that, where Wexford had the ball and they were driving the. You know, if we had only got a point there, we were 6 points down. If we got a point, it was 5. We had a chance for a goal. Then we were in the game again. And yet these things slipped past. And Offaly just never even changed the gear. I was a bit worried about Offaly because they didn't seem to capitalise on those mistakes and errors. They just went up the pitch and maybe hit a few wides themselves, but started to gain control of the game. And really didn't kill it off, but had control all the same. And Wexford were looking for goals and couldn't break them down.
I'd say there was only one Offaly man in the ground who might have been slightly frustrated to watch David Hughes' saves towards the second half there, and that was Jim Troy.
Yeah, I think so, but Jim is a good goalkeeper, but that guy didn't let Offaly down at all today now, and he had, as the commentary actually stated, there was a long period of time where he had nothing to do at all, and then 2 shots at him, and he made 2 very good saves. But you know, he's a good keeper, and it's nice to have the choice. It's better to have 2 very good keepers and going well, rather than thinking, you know, who are we going to pick or where are we going to find one, you know.
Colin O'Rourke beside you is agreeing with that anyway for a start. An Offaly caller rang in to say, why were Offaly the underdogs going into this match? I suppose it's a fair point the way they've played against Kilkenny.
Because in recent time they've only played 1 championship match in each of the last seasons, and they were beaten by Kilkenny twice. Now a lot of people would say, yeah, but they were beaten by the eventual All-Ireland champions, but we had seen an awful lot of Wexford. We've seen a lot of them, even though they may not have won anything. We've seen them playing very well in national leagues. We've seen them in the last 3 Leinster finals, and they are a very good team. That's why people then, you get into your head and you say, yeah, these guys, but if you look back at the minor championships and under-21 championships, Offaly have won. They've won it with very, very good hurlers and with good hurling technique as the bedrock of their game. And when you've got that good hurling technique, That's what's going to win. At the end of the day, when everything else goes out the window and people are breaking down and you don't have any energy and nobody's psyched up anymore, what comes out? Well, class comes out in the end of the day, and I think that's what happened today.
We'll talk about the future for Offaly in a moment, because they at least have a future in the Championship. The big question, of course, is what about Wexford now? 3 Leinster finals and nothing to show for it, and last year's league final defeat, and it's it can't get any more depressing for them.
It can't. I will mention Wexford supporters at this stage, because I think they actually are, on one side they're very partisan. They only see Wexford and nothing else. In fairness now, they give me a hard time, but they follow that team all over the country and they follow them everywhere, and their expectations are huge. And I feel disappointed for them, because they are very, very good GAA followers. At the end of the day, I think if you put it down, pinned them to the collar, they would be for the GAA before they'd be for anything else.
Sure.
Now, it would be Wexford first, obviously, but you know, I'd say they support charity matches down there. They go to club games in droves, and you know, you say to yourself, well, where do they go from here? Well, I don't know. You know, there's something radical has to happen. I think their attitude has to change. The style of hurling possibly has to change, and take it from there, because they're not winning the way they're playing. And that's the bottom line at the end of the day. If you're not winning things, you've got to really examine what the system is in your county and what's happening, and change it radically. Even if you think, but we played like this for 20 years, or this is the way we always did it. Well, so what? If you're not winning something, that's the bottom line.
Sure.
So.
Well, Offaly certainly have no complaints in that department, from a very small hurling base. I mean, they've taken their second Leinster title now of the 90s. They play Galway, who won their quarter-final this afternoon, of course, in the All-Ireland semi-final. And that'll be interesting, of course, because they're 2 neighbouring counties, although in different provinces.
They do, and Offaly fear nobody. Offaly fear nobody, and Galway will not mean a thing to them at all. They'll be saying to themselves, do you remember 80, and do you remember this match, and do you remember when we beat Galway? And they're bordering like across the river, and there's 2 parishes, and they see each other, Lustman, whoever it is across the way.
Right, yeah.
You know, and they'd be saying, great, this is great. This is fantastic. We'll beat Galway and we're in a final. And then we play Limerick or Antrim. Sure, we'll get back Antrim after what they did to us in '89.
Galway have been tipped for this year's All-Ireland. Do you think that Offaly team can beat them?
Oh, they can, definitely. They've got good forwards, they've got solid backs, they've got good hurling technique, and they're very similar to Galway. And in a lot of ways, they've won lots of underage competition in recent years. Both teams have, and it'll be a very good match. And in fact, probably the winner will come out of that game.
All right, Ciaran, thank you very much for your thoughts on today's match. Well, now let's take a check on the day's main scorelines in Gaelic games. We start off with the Ulster Championship Senior Football Final, down 117, Tyrone 111. And in the Minor Football Final there, Armagh 313, down 1-7. The Leinster Championship Senior Hurling Final, Offaly 118, Wexford 14 points, and in the minor final there, Kilkenny 213, Offaly 3-6. And also the minor football semi-final replay, Wexford 3-6, Meath 3-5. And in the All-Ireland Championship Senior Hurling, that quarter-final that I mentioned a moment ago, Galway running out fairly easily, winners there at League against Roscommon, 221 to 2-6, the final scoreline there. Finally in Camogie, the National Junior League Final replay, Armagh 113 and Cork 1-2. Well, now finally here on the Sunday Game for tonight, it's competition time. Another chance for you to have a look at the contenders for the score of the month for June in hurling. Now, a reminder that there's a chance for you to win yourself a weekend in Dublin for one of the All-Ireland semi-finals, either hurling or football, whichever you choose. Well, how to enter in just a moment. First, here's the scores that you've got to select from.
Score A was by Ger Manley of Cork in their defeat to Limerick in the Munster Hurling Championship on the 5th of June.
Mark Mullins actually getting the measure of Declan Nash, showing great pace as well. Nicely inside here, that's Ger Manley, that's a great goal!
Score B was by Gary Kirby of Limerick, also during that game, played at the Gaelic Grounds, Limerick.
Laying it down here to Pat Heffernan, that goal scorer, cleverly taking it away from the attention of Sean O'Gorman. Bidding to set up another attack towards Gary Kirby. Kirby coming in brilliantly. That's a great goal.
Score C was by Kevin Murray of Cork, once again in that Munster Hurling Championship clash.
Outside to Shonny McCarthy, will he go for a goal? He is. And it's stopped again. What a save. Murray. And that's buried.
Score D was by Mike Galligan of Limerick in their win over Waterford in the Munster Hurling Championship semi-final on June the 19th.
Mike Galligan. Well hooked
Score E was by Eamon Scallon of Wexford and their win over Laois in the Leinster Hurling Championship on June 26th.
Pulled on by Adrian Finlan. Comes down towards Eamon Scallon, and there's a goal on here. Scallon going for it. Oh, brilliant stuff.
Score F was by Billy Dooley of Offaly and their win over Kilkenny in the Leinster Hurling Championship semi-final.
Good ball for Johnny Pilkington, trying to get it across to brother Declan. Brendan Kelly has gone outside him if he needs him. Decides to swing it right into the middle. Good vision. Oh, a magnificent goal.
Score G was by DJ Carey of Kilkenny, also in that same championship match played on the 26th of June.
Sending it across towards DJ Carey. Oh, lovely control by Carey. Brilliant stuff by Carey, and he's going straight through. Jim Troy, and it's a brilliant goal.
And finally, Score H by Joe Dooley of Offaly, once again in that Leinster Hurling Championship semi-final game.
John Troy. Good ball into Billy Dooley, to brother Joe, to the back of the nets.
And there you have confirmation of the hurling scores for the month of June. Score A by Ciaran Manley of Cork. Score B, Gary Kirby of Limerick. Score C, Kevin Murray, Cork. Score D, Mike Galligan of Limerick. Score E, Eamon Scallon, Wexford. Score F, Billy Dooley, Offaly. Score G, DJ Carey of Kilkenny. And Score H, Joe Dooley, Offaly. To enter the Sunday Game Hurling Score of the Month competition for June, simply put your name, address and 1, 2, 3 selection on the back of a postcard only. And address it to the Score of the Month, the Sunday Game, P.O. Box 4205, RTE, Donnybrook, Dublin 4. Or you can enter by telephoning in your 1, 2, 3 selection on 1550 111 333 for callers in the Republic of Ireland, or on 0891 337766 for callers in Northern Ireland. Calls cost 44 pence per minute off peak, 58 pence per minute peak times.
The very best of luck to you with that competition. Now let's just go back to our phone lines again and put a few thoughts to the panel. An Navan caller rang in to say that McCartan overcarried the ball for the second penalty award. I think you said that, Colin, did you, in your analysis of it?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that Navan caller. I always agree with Navan callers, actually. But I'd say James was a bit liberal with his steps, all right, before he went to ground.
Mm-hmm. OK, John Loughlin from Castleblaney rang in to say the standard of officiating at Clonus was poor today. We've had a number of callers wanting to know what your thoughts on Tyrone are, because we talked about Down earlier on. But what about Tyrone? They've got themselves to an Ulster final this year out of, I suppose, nowhere. Do they have a future?
Yes, first of all, I'd just like to say I think Tommy McDermott did actually a very good job in Clonus, so I wouldn't like to be always seen to be knocking referees. I think he did a very good job. And Tyrone lack a lot in size. Of course they're young and I'm sure they'll come back, but they're going to they have a big problem in physique. They lost all those sort of 50-50 confrontations around the middle of the field, breaking ball and fellas using a bit of physical strength to get in on it, and they're always going to be losing out on those sort of things. And really, apart from Peter Canavan, their forwards didn't threaten much. They tried to isolate Canavan in the same way as Down isolate Linden inside in a 1-to-1 situation, but Down countered that by simply winning all the ball around the middle of the field. So there's no point in having a good forward if you can't get the ball into him.
They have a good backroom team there. I mean, Art McCrory obviously has been there for years in charge of the Tyrone side, and also Eugene McKenna, who's a very astute person.
That's right. Eugene McKenna is somebody I played against on a number of occasions in the past. Would be very knowledgeable, a very, very good man, and him and Art would be a good team there. So I think they have talent. It's just a matter of being able to get a few players of physique around the middle of the field that can win possession and set up those smaller forwards, because Canavan and Cush and Gormley, they're very, very skillful, but they need somebody who can take a bit of the weight off them.
OK, by the way, Billy from Navan phoned in to say, how's your finger?
Well, it's fine.
You've dislocated your finger?
Yeah, it's only an occupational hazard. It's not really a problem at this stage, and I'll be all right for the game anyway in 2 weeks.
I'm sure you will. Ballinasloe caller Ciaran rang in to say, why don't the football players wear their names on the back of their jerseys like the soccer players do? Now, I know that GA people often say, oh, why do we always have to feel we're aping soccer? But what about that? Would that be an idea?
It's a good idea, but I think the soccer players get a panel of players, 22 for a tournament, and you name them out, and it's very easy to do from the practical side of putting the names on the jerseys. I think you might sometimes see the teams changing very rapidly in the GAA, and 1 week it's a 15 and the next week it's a different 15. Sure. So do we go with 22 players at the start of the championship and name them out or not? I don't think it's practical in the GAA terms, but maybe if they could do it the week before a game, if the 15 were known,
sure,
it'd be a handy idea.
A Kerry caller phoned in to ask this point of you, which I think is quite interesting. With so many fine stadiums in places like Clonus, Thurles, Cork, etc., why should the All-Ireland finals and semi-finals be played in Dublin? Why can't they be played outside the Pale for a change? Any thoughts on that?
I think Clonus looked fantastic today, actually, in fairness to it, and Semple Stadium looked very well last week in the Munster final. I think the larger ones, for capacity, but that's the problem. The Croke Park will be the biggest stadium that
sure,
there will be around, and that's the maximum people want to see.
Mind you, it isn't this year.
It isn't this year, and that's a valid point. You know, and there has been talk by the Limerick County Board of moving one of the semis of the hurling down to Thurles. It's a valid point, you know, and maybe they should look at it, I don't know, but at the end of the day, even the Meath Dublin match next week, there's going to be a huge amount of people wanting to see that match, and they just physically won't be able to see it. And it's a bit disappointing, but what do you do?
How would you feel about it, Colin? Because at least some of the hurling matches do get outside Dublin. 1 or 2 of the semi-finals have been played in Thurles, etc.
Yeah, well, I suppose the thing that I'd be thinking of most is this Meath Dublin game in 2 weeks, and I suppose normally you would have 60,000, 65,000 wanting to go to that, and now it's going to be 35,000. So maybe you should play one match on Saturday and lay in 35,000, play another match and Sunday, lay in another 35,000.
They should have 2 games in Dublin and Meath.
So
home away, both in Croke Park.
I suppose next year the problem will be solved when Croke Park is able to take 70,000 in 5 or 6 years. It'll be able to take 80,000, then all the problems will be solved. But at the moment, certainly there's a major loss of revenue to the Leinster Council by the restrictions in Croke Park, and I suppose, you know, there is the possibility of playing in Thurles, and I think the Leinster Council did look at that, but of course there's far more important matters in Thurles that weekend. The fail is on.
So that's another.
We couldn't interfere with that.
That's another issue altogether. And at that point, that's it from this earlier than usual edition of the Sunday Game. A reminder that coming up shortly over on Network 2 was the World Cup final between Brazil and Italy, and I hope that you enjoyed that. Well, tomorrow night on the Game on Monday, there's another chance for you to see this afternoon's action from both the Leinster Hurling Final and the Ulster Football Decider. And then back here on the Sunday Game in a week's time, it's a football double-header. The Connacht Final from Castlebar between Mayo and Leitrim, and what a day that promises to be for Leitrim fans. Also on the programme, it's the Munster Football Final and a repeat of last year's decider between Cork and Tipperary. But for tonight, we say congratulations to the hurlers of Offaly, their second Leinster title of the 90s, and congratulations also to Downs footballers at Clonus this afternoon. They too captured their second provincial title of the decade. And so then, from Colin, from Ciaran, and from myself, and from all in the Sunday Game, good night.
Still Dooley needs a little bit of help and support. Yeah, oh, wonderful skill by John Troy. Lashing it in. Oh, what a goal! That is a classic goal. Made and created by one John Troy and finished brilliantly by Billy Dooley.
Remember, it's 10 points to 5 in Down's favour. Here comes Roscar. That's in the back of the net.